Hello and welcome to another episode of the Zion Experience, or as we call it, TZE. We're glad to have you. If you're a returning guest, if you're a first-time listener, we're super glad to have you here. And we've got an exciting show for you today. We've got a guest that we've been looking forward to talking to about all things robotics. We're calling this episode Present Day Robotics, and we got a great person here that's got his finger right on the pulse of the robotics in the material and supply chain industry. So if this is your first time listening to us, please do go out and subscribe to the podcast. We drop a podcast, try to about every 2 weeks. We have a wide array of different conversations and topics that we talk to. We talk to people inside the industry. We talk to old teachers sometimes. We just have a conversation with interesting people every now and then. So I'm one of the hosts, your co-host, Jimmy Shaw, and then I've got my partner in crime, Jordan Frank. We're back together after we've had a summer. We've had family vacations. We've had stuff going on, and I've been solo. We've had guest hosts. We've done a little bit of everything, but here we are, Jordan. We're back together. So
right. It's good. We're coming out of that summer kind of vacation season, although I hear that you had a change of trip recently. I heard that from Drew. So we can get into that later. But yeah, good morning, everybody. Steve, nice to see you here.
What's up, gentlemen?
Yep. And I do have a change of trip, so we might go down that rabbit hole. And I've got even a more change of trip that Drew doesn't know about. So I may just tell you, and then you can tell Drew next time.
Right.
But let me introduce our guest. It's Steve Crowe. The topic is present day robotics. Let me just tell you a little bit about Steve, and then let Steve in his own words. There's never words in a bio that really justifies who a person is. I always like to hear it from their voice as well. But I'm going to read this off a little bit. So Steve is a dynamic editor, writer, and public speaker with more than 10 plus years experience in B2B magazines, online content, and editorial management. He's currently the editor for the Robot Report and Collaborative Robotic Trends. The Robot Report provides engineering, technology, and business professionals with a single source for breaking news, product information, independent analysis, and in-depth research. Collaborative Robotics Trends provides news and analysis about emerging collaborative robotics capabilities, powerful enabling technologies, cobot applications, and insights into future innovations. Steve is also the co-founder and co-chair of the Robotics Summit and Expo, which Zion was an attendee this year, and we helped sponsor the Robot of the Year award, and really, really cool. And then the Robotics Summit and Expo is a technical conference. It's out of Boston, and it's dedicated to addressing the issues involved with the design, development, manufacture of commercial robotic systems. Steve is also, man, you got a long bio, Steve. Steve is also a co-chair of Robo Business, an international robotics business development and innovation event that's located in the heart of Silicon Valley that's been around for nearly 20 years. So
where'd you get that?
I've never seen it. Steve's a cool dude that does some magazines and puts on some cool shows, and he's all about robots. So Steve, what to miss, man? What else? How else would you describe yourself?
Where did you get that bio? I've never seen something that long in my life.
You got me. I have no idea. I just show up and read sometimes, Steve. That's all I do.
You're the talent.
I didn't mess these words up. Normally, I can't get through some of the words, and you had some big ones in there. I got through it.
No, that was great, man. What we do. So we're a media company. We have a number of different websites, magazines, live events, and mainly trying to educate robotics engineers, developers, and investors about what's going on in the market, what are some of the cool emerging technologies, and then we get into the nitty-gritty of, how do we build them, right? What are some of the enabling technologies coming to market? What's new with motion control? What's new with, foundation models and generative AI and sensing and all that? And how do we put all the pieces of the puzzle together to help create better robots to help companies in different vertical markets do their job better. I think we're all aware of some of the challenges many companies face. So that's what we do. Try to educate robotics developers, people in the industry about what's going on.
Sweet.
Yeah, it's cool. And thank you guys for sponsoring, the Robotics Summit. That was, the first time that we've done that award and that awards program at a live event. So thank you guys for being involved. That was fun.
Yeah, we really enjoyed it. We were last minute. I think Steve, as you get to know me better, Jordan knows this about me, but I have some trouble sleeping, and I might send an email at 2:00 in the morning sometimes, and I was up one of those nights, and I saw something. I looked into the Robotics Summit, and I dug into it a little more, and then I reached out to the team and said, how can we be part of it? So we did it last minute a little bit this year, but we enjoyed it. It's touching on a sector that we're heavily involved in and interested in, and looking at, always the future of what's next. The world changes so quickly. The technologies are advancing so quickly that we thought it made a lot of sense for Zion to be part of it, and we had a good time. What about outside of work? So we always like to talk a little bit about, like we heard what you're all into robotics and technology and educating. You're talented editorial. You're putting on these shows. But what's life out of work look like for Steve? Family?
Life's crazy, right? Work is almost an escape, right, from the craziness of raising a family. So I got 3 little girls, 10, 6, and 4. So they keep us busy. My wife's a teacher in the town that we live in, so we're quite busy. The kids are getting to that age where the 10-year-old's been involved in different activities for a number of years now, but the 2 little ones are also now starting to get out there into the world. So it's I know you have at least I think you got 2 kids, Jim. So I
got 4.
You got 4. Holy moly!
I got 4.
Wow. Yep. Okay, so you got to teach me some things. But it's great, man. It's they keep us young, they keep us busy, and it's just fun. A lot of sports in this household, right? I played basketball growing up. That's how I actually met my wife. Was playing basketball, intramural basketball in college. So we're trying to pass that down onto the kids. That's probably the number one sport for us. And outside of that, man, there's not much time for other things, as you know. Obviously, going away. I think I had my summer beard going. I should have shaved. But lots of vacations the last couple of months, going away with the family. So busy times. But work's almost like you get to decompress and focus on some cool stuff.
Gotcha. Cool.
4 kids, man. I thought 3 was nuts.
Yeah. Mine are 13 to 4. So we're all up in that season of life right now. And Jordan's got 3 himself, and he's got 2 youngers. Jordan just took his whole crew to the beach. Yeah. I think it was the beach last week, right, Jordan? How'd that go?
Yeah. It was good. We were down in the Destin area, which is about a 10.5 drive for a normal family of 4. But for a family of 5, such as ours, was about 12.5.
How many times did you stop? How many times did you?
I lost count after we stopped 3 times in the first 4 hours. So I'm not sure, but we made it down there. We did have a good time. And what's cool about the area that we were in, it's called Watercolor. It's kind of in between Destin and Panama City. But it's a golf cart community. So the kids love that. We had a 6-seater golf cart and got the car seat strapped in. And every day, we'd go out in the golf cart. And so they kind of kept them busy and just went to the pool. But it was good. It was the first family vacation that we've had where it was just the 5 of us. We've gone on trips with my parents, her parents, and extended family, but it was good just to have the 5 of us kind of going at our pace. And I've got a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 12-year-old. So I'm kind of all over the place, but I'm not quite in my daughter does competitive cheer, which keeps us busy. And then we've got my 4-year-old just now getting into soccer. And then next year I'm trying to convince my wife to allow him to do baseball, but she's kind of anti-baseball right now. So we'll see how it goes.
What's Summer got against baseball?
She's like, it's just boring. She's like, I can't sit out there and watch it. It's just boring. I said, you're going to suck it up. She said, it's going to be good. I said,
I'm going to mute myself because I might agree with your wife and say something that Jordan doesn't want.
It is boring. I played baseball through high school. It is. They're trying the pitch clock has sped the games up for sure, but it's just it doesn't have the same excitement level as basketball or the same moments as football. It just doesn't, but Holly's that way. If Holly had her preference, she'd be like 0 sports, 0 commitments, no running everywhere. And I'm a little bit that way, but I won't go all in. I think sports today for some of these kids at a young age has just gotten too involved. Like my niece plays on a traveling team and it's every weekend. And I think kids need to be kids. I think kids need to get out and they need to play. They need to have some structure. But if you're on a trajectory and you want to be a professional athlete or you want to play in high school, it's almost like conditioned where you have to do some of that today. But Anyway, we go
Yeah.
all kinds. We got soccer, we got volleyball, we got cross country, we got wrestling. James wants to play flag football, tackle football, baseball. James wants to play any sport that he can play. And my wife's anti-sports to an extent. She was a band girl, so I was all sports, but we work it out. It makes for some interesting days in the house. But
yeah,
well, cool. Well, I'm glad we all are similar seasons of life. And
Yeah.
It's good. My crew's behind me on the, I don't know which way it is. I guess on my left. Steve, you can see I got the little picture there. Got the group of the Zion guys, Drew, Chuck, Jordan, and myself, and then my family is on the other side. So I get a lot of joy out of my family.
I think I missed the Zoom background trend.
You just got you're a podcast guy too, so I thought
I know it's like,
is this the normal podcast seat, or do you got like a little area?
Oh no, this is it, baby. This is it.
Okay,
this is it.
I'm cheating.
I think I just, everybody, how long was the pandemic ago? 3 years ago. And I think I just fought the resistance. You know what I mean? I was just like, I dug my foot in, I dug my heels in, and it got to a point where I was so late to the game on it that I just kind of had to hold my ground. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So here we are.
I got you.
I've gone through a lot of different backgrounds. I used to do it. We didn't have an office. So when we first started Zion, so I was out of my house. And I had like this brick wall in my house, and that looked kind of good. I had the TV going, and then I transitioned to my office because it was summertime and the kids were home from school, so I couldn't be out there because it was just nonstop. And then we went to a temporary office while we were getting this office ready, and so I was in a different room in there. It's just I've always been bouncing around. Like today's the first time I've done this view where I'm not actually looking at the camera because I think I'm always looking up. So it's just always changing around, Steve. Keep people on their toes.
You got to keep them on their toes. Yeah, you don't want to go on to see what's around me because I'm in my bedroom. So it's again with the 3 kids, right? They can run in anytime. It's That's like remember that guy he was on some news station, a British guy, and it was right when the pandemic started, and he was doing
had his shorts or whatever on. Yeah, his kid ran in, and
one of his kids ran in. So it's crazy, but it's all good. But I just missed the Zoom background train.
You know what though? It's you can do this anywhere. So I'm sitting in little old Hodgenville, Kentucky. I've got this is a corner of my office, and I just got it kind of set up. But it's like you got an internet connection, you got a computer, you got the right technology. You can have a conversation with anybody in the world, and all that other stuff. We're very low key production here. You could spend a whole lot of money, but we just like to get on and talk and just make it look in the background. You can do that anywhere in the world. That's one of just the great things about technology, which allows me to steer us into our real topic today is robotics, Steve, and probably what the group, whoever's listening, wants to hear about. So tell us, how did the robot report? How did this whole robot report? How did you get in where you're at? What started your podcast, and just what's made it successful? I'm just bundling a bunch of things together. So just tell the audience a little bit about that and just your journey.
Yeah. So I'm a journalist by trade, right? So, I think when I was I was kind of a sports nut, right? A huge Celtics fan, intern for the Celtics in 2008 when they won a championship that year. But I've always been a lifelong sports fan. So the goal, the dream as a kid was to be somehow involved in the sports media landscape, broadcasting, writing, whatever it was. But that turned out to be, not a great fit for a number of different reasons. But I went to Emerson College. It's in downtown Boston, great journalism school, and hooked on. Once I figured out the sports path was probably not for quality of life was really the number one reason, probably not the way to go. I hooked on with a local media company that had a number of different divisions. One of them happened to be a robotics division. So I was there for a number of years, but that was a different company. The Robot Report was actually started by a gentleman named Frank Toby. I don't know if you guys know who Frank Toby is, but shout out to Frank Toby. He started it probably 15 years ago, and he had a number of different careers. I think he did some political things, but he was trying to learn more. He ran some political campaigns for people, but he was trying to learn more about robotics. And so what he did was essentially started a blog called the Robot Report that enabled him to get press credentials to go to different events and do different things and learn about the industry. And he would share his findings. And, back then there wasn't a lot of coverage of robotics in general, let alone a dedicated website and brand to it. So he kind of built it up over the years and educated himself. And he actually co-founded a robotics ETF called Robo Global. I don't know if you guys have heard of that. It's not, somebody acquired it a number of years ago, but it was a group of publicly traded robotics companies that they would track and you could buy into and as in part of your investment portfolio. So he kind of used and leveraged his knowledge and his learnings from covering the industry and writing for the Robot Report to, create this Robo Global and really sort of understand some of the trends and how he could capitalize on that from a financial perspective. But when he got involved with that, he kind of had to sell it just to keep everything on the up and up. So he sold it to a media company called WTWH Media. They're based in Cleveland, Ohio. And I knew a guy that they hired to run the robotics group back 6 years ago. I knew him for a number of years, used to work with him, and he brought me on board. So I was employee number 2 of their robotics group, which owned the Robot Report. And then we launched the Robotics Summit that same year. And then we acquired Robo Business a couple of years later. So somewhat of a whirlwind journey, but very thankful, especially to my wife. My wife is kind of responsible for all, my entire career, really. She's the one. I met her in college. And like I said before, she's a teacher, right? And the way that it works up here is she's licensed to teach in Massachusetts. So I was going to take a sports writing job in New York, but she wasn't going to move because her license wouldn't be official over there, and she would have to basically start from scratch. So that kind of steered me to going down this path, and thank God I did, because it's a great job. It's so interesting to talk with folks like yourself and learn about robotics and some of these cutting edge technologies, but has enabled me to start a family and all this kind of stuff. So it's really thankful. I know it's probably cheesy, but she's pretty responsible for where I am.
That's awesome, man. What's her name?
Lindsay.
So we can thank Lindsay for this. Tell Lindsay she's got to watch the Zion Experience now to hear the shout out to her. So
yeah. And that's how we launched our podcast, was during the pandemic, right? We had these live events that were just, basically overnight didn't exist. Right. And it's, a major revenue stream for our company. Right. So what do we do? And we looked at, do we launch these virtual trade shows, which I was actually in favor of launching a virtual trade show, which ended up being, we did not do that, thank God, because they were disastrous for a lot of other companies that did try to do that. But we launched a podcast. We do an audio only podcast almost every week. But like you said before, Jim, these technologies that are available today just enable us to have these conversations. So we just get industry leaders, try to keep the conversation going. And it's been a lot of fun. So super thankful to be here.
Yeah. Cool.
Steve, before you start at the Robot Report, coming from sports writing, and it's pretty cool at the Celtics. I heard you say you were there. You were interning the year they won the championship in 2008. Is that what you said?
Yeah. So I don't know how much you guys know or your listeners know about the Celtics, but yeah. So I endured a lot of horrible years as a Boston Celtics fan. I missed, I don't remember the tail end of the Larry Bird era. That doesn't, I don't have any recollection of that. So I lived through the, David Wesley and Vitaly Potapenko and Rick Pitino, and missing out on Tim Duncan with the #1 pick in the NBA draft, and trading Chauncey Billups before he became a legend, and endured all these horrible losing seasons. And then through Emerson College, they had a great relationship with the Celtics from an intern standpoint. Hooked on there, so I interned the year. They traded for Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen. They drafted Rondo. Paul Pierce was there, so that was the year that I got to intern with them. So I wasn't at the championship games. Unfortunately, it ended. I was there for the LeBron. I don't know if you remember, LeBron and Paul Pierce had like 45 points each in a game 7, I think, at the Garden. I was there for that. But it gets a little funky what they're allowed to do from a press and credential standpoint when they get to the NBA Finals. That kind of gets taken over by the league. So what an experience that was.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, hey, I mean, at least you've got a good team, and it's cool to be a fan of a team and then get to work for them. So it's better than being a fan of the Cincinnati Bengals and Cincinnati Reds that don't win anything ever. So I understand, going through those challenges. But
is that one of your teams? Is that why
those are both my teams? Yeah, I mean, so I live in Northern Kentucky, so it's the stadiums The Reds and the Bengals are probably 10 minutes from where I'm sitting right now.
Oh, cool.
And then, so I went to UK for school. So, of course, following around Rajon Rondo was cool. And then when I was in college, I had Billy Gillespie my freshman year. Tubby Smith had just gone and retired or was asked to leave. And Billy Gillespie was a short stint. And then Calipari came in my second year there. So that was the John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins years and Patrick Patterson. So that was a fun time to be there. But what, for me, where I was going earlier, Steve, is for me, I went to school. I started computer engineering. I ended up in economics and didn't see myself at all being in this industry, but I'm glad that I found it. So with you transitioning from your sports journalism into the robotics, is that something that you had interest in before starting there? Or was it something that you saw an opportunity, you started, and then you just kind of fell in love with it?
Yeah, I didn't even know robots existed basically, right? Before. So totally by chance. When I first hooked on with a media company in Framingham, Massachusetts, it's like 20 minutes west of Boston, we would cover I was covering the custom electronics business. So, mainly small, probably similar to what you guys are at this stage of Zion's life, right? Smaller companies, founded by maybe some friends or a really small group. And, let's say Jim would hire, if Jim wants a home theater installed in his house, right, he would hire a company to come build a home theater in his house, or, a home security system, or in-wall multi-room speakers, things like that. So similar in that we were writing to these businesses about, new products that were emerging. I remember Sonos was a new emerging technology at the time. Yep. And all these small businesses really at first hated Sonos because they saw this, like I have a somewhat complicated audio system I have a home theater in my basement, and that I installed myself. And it's these complex, you got to wire everything and, take the ceiling down and run it through the wall joists. And so they would be able to charge money for all that installation time and effort. Right. And here comes this Sonos product, this wireless audio product that is very easy to set up. You just got to connect it to your Wi-Fi connection at your house, and bang, here you go. So they were super concerned about it at the time, but now they've embraced it, whatever it is, 10 years later, as hey, it's a pretty cool technology, enables me to build relationships with the customers, so on and so forth. But so we had pretty good success growing that division at the company. I was responsible for the online stuff there. And so this media company had a robotics division at the time, and they were looking to scale the online portion of the robotics business. So they had asked me to go over and help with that. So I accepted, thought it was a cool opportunity. Was never involved in live events until that moment in time. So yeah, totally by chance that this has happened.
Cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. And that the Sonos, part of that brings us back to the robotics and technologies. As you think about how the industry changes and evolves, and something comes out like Sonos, we've got those technologies, which I'm going to transition to. As an integrator, you're always watching, like, what it is today is nowhere near what it'll be in 10 years from now. And Correct. So to build these systems, to put in the right technology, to multi-million-dollar systems with customers, you got to make some of the right selections, and knowing that the industry's shifting and it's pivoting, and how do you evolve, and you try to look into the future. We have our one of our business coaches says, look around the corner. How do you see around the corner? So for you, let's just, what technologies, what technologies are you most excited about, Steve, that you see that are today and functioning? And then maybe what's the look around the corner? What do you see around the corner, and just where the robot industry is, if you've got an opinion on those? It's kind of a 3-layered question, but
yeah, I don't know if this constitutes as present day or, future, but you guys know it very well, as the humanoid aspect. Right. And
yeah,
I'm super fascinated by it for a number of different reasons. I think, and this might be a weird answer, but I think the real reason that to me it's fascinating is just from other folks in robotics, like the amount of hate towards these humanoids is crazy, and I get it, wheels are more efficient than legs, and I get that whole thing, right? But it wasn't that long ago where AMRs were in this same position, right? Do we really need these things? And So to see almost replicating that is just quite fascinating to me. It's like you would think everybody wants new form factors and new technologies to come out, and it will be, if it works, it'll be beneficial to everyone. But we just wrote a story yesterday where the CEO of Agility Robotics was on stage at a tech conference
Peggy.
and talked to Peggy. That was great. She talked a little bit about, what it costs, right? So she talked about they have a real world deployment on a small scale with Spanx, right, down in Georgia.
Right. Yep.
And, she's talking about, hey, we're at about $30 per hour for a fully loaded deployment. And, so we're figuring out the calculations. And again, this was the first time that any of these humanoid companies have even divulged a tiny, breadcrumb of information about what it costs. So it's phenomenal to see them do that. But, so I wrote this story and shared it. Again, I'm just here to educate people and share what we're learning and new information to help guide things. And just like the doubters and, how are they, like, why are they doing this? And this is it's like, where does this come from? Maybe it's like the social media age that we're in and people are just doubters or haters or I don't know what it is, but there's so many companies working on humanoids now, like really smart robotics engineers, really successful robotics industry folks and investors. It's like, I think we just need to take a deep breath, as an industry and just let it sort of take its course. These things are just beginning. I mean, Agility is literally, from my understanding, the only humanoid company that's ever been able to showcase, a humanoid that does something in the real world, right? Not a tech demo or, dancing on a stage or, I know Asimo was used for marketing things back in the day, but as far as manipulating things for an actual customer and moving, no one's ever shown that before. So I think people just need to understand, this is super early on in the life of this type of technology. Just give it a chance, man. But I think that, to me, that's the most fascinating part of it right now, is this technology and where it's going to go, but also the dichotomy or the line that's been drawn in the sand, right? It's like you're either on board with the humanoids and think they're going to be the best thing since sliced bread, which I'm not saying is the case, or you're so anti-humanoid you don't even want to give it a chance, right? So I'm sure there's been another technology like that. Maybe you guys know in robotics that sort of brought up these sort of debates, but I think that right now is by far the most interesting thing happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit on something key there, Steve, and it's that it's early. And I think in our industry with these robotics, it's a lot of times when there's a new robot that's launched and it can go into a warehouse, it's more commercially ready, meaning that you could have a larger system. People can see the immediate use case. They can see how it can immediately help them, right? And with Agility, I respect what they're doing, and they are doing a crawl, walk, run approach. They know they're not out there trying to sell 50 humanoids or 50 digits into a single facility. They're like, hey, look, we know that we've got some time here, but we want to take the time that we have to deploy what we have available to learn from it. So right now we're really in a learning stage. I think we at Zion definitely believe in the humanoids. They can see the potential that's coming, with the understanding that that's not tomorrow. It's not maybe as far out as some people think, right? But it's like, I know you may not be able to see, I can't replace a person straight up today, but that's not the goal, right? So I think embracing that, hey, we're early on, this is a learning period, it's only going to get better from here. To me, I think the potential is just unbelievable. But I also just don't think that humanoids today, I'm not saying this will always be true, they're not meant to replace every single task that a person does in a facility. It's looking for repeatable movements. It's looking for Agility's focused on tote manipulation, right? So if I've got an empty tote return, if I've got a tote that I have to palletize, it's that repeatable kind of movement. That may grow, but one thing that they're doing, I think is really smart, is they're not focusing on the finger manipulation, which we learned from them that when you think about that, every finger is its own robot, right? So now you got 10 additional robots attached to these hands that you have to control, whereas they kind of have that gripper, which makes it more usable in the facility. And I think it's a smart thing that they did on their part. But I agree with you. I think the humanoids are something that we're excited about. I don't know of really a similar technology myself that kind of had the same potential, but also the same concern. I mean, Locust, to an extent, when it first came out, I questioned it. I'm like, I don't understand it. I don't know why this robot that's driving around, you still have to walk, you still have to pick. I'm like, you got these goods to person systems and everything else. But then you fast forward, it's like, well, shoot, it's easy to deploy. It makes an immediate impact. It may not give you the same efficiency as some of the more expensive goods to person systems, but not everybody needs that, right? Just like not everybody needs custom home electronics. You can have a Sonos and you can plug one in, then it's the best thing you'll ever have. So everyone's kind of in a different area of what they need. And so I think humanoids will come in a big way, and excited to see what they have, in 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, and a lot of times it comes back, and again, the questions are, I think they're valid, right? It's like, and people want to know more about the pricing and the cost and all this stuff, and the companies are keeping it pretty close to their vest. But I've had, and I don't know if this is true, I'm just sharing what multiple people have told me, users of robots, integrators of robots have both said, it's not necessarily about the ROI from like a year standpoint. What they're saying is robots are guaranteed labor, right? So, if the ROI is, we thought it was going to be 2 years, but now maybe it's 3 years, that's not the worst thing in the world, because at least I know, as the company, the user, this thing's still going to show up and do the job, right? Where I'm not losing time trying to constantly rehire people, retrain people, find people that want to do this job. And there's not many people who want to do these types of jobs anymore. So it's just fascinating on a number of different fronts. So I would say that's certainly, there's a lot of other things that we're keeping an eye on, right? Generative AI and, foundation models, and are they real? Are they not real? I think they're probably at the very beginning of the hype cycle when it comes to that, right? But that seems to be another topic that everybody wants to talk about. But yeah, there's a lot of cool things happening right now, which is, it's hard to keep up. It's hard to follow it all. But, that's how we sort of produce our events. Like what are the top topics of the time? What are the topics of the moment that people want to learn about? And, we try to do our best to set a realistic, paint a realistic picture as to what's happening.
Yeah, I'd add a few things on just humanoids. I think you all hit it really well. So we've had the privilege of being in the room with 3 of the players in the market right now. So we sat down with Brett and Figure AI. We sat down with Jeff and his team at Aptronic. They're all having some form of success and proof of concepts. And then we met. Agility really came more to us and approached just through relationships. Pete Allen, great person. Everybody we've met at Agility's just been top-notch people. And we, Steve, I think I'd shared this with you, but we're actually the first. It's crazy. We're the first systems integrator. We're claiming this, right? I think it's
claim away.
We're the first systems integrator to in the world to be able to commercially distribute, have the ability to commercially distribute a humanoid robot, and at least in North America, that's been announced that we're aware of. And so we partnered with Agility a couple months ago and announced it, and it just really has grown this year. And we know they're not ready yet, but we're working actively on proof of concept. So if anybody's listening, you're interested in proof of concept with Agility, they're looking for a couple use cases. They're almost filled up. They've only got 1 or 2 more slots this year because there is limited inventory. But the fact that Agility was the first one in a warehouse doing real work, and so where they're at, and just the team and the relationship, we just felt it was a natural fit for us, and just good people. We don't know who's going to ultimately, and we've shared this with Agility. I don't know 10 years from now who's going to be the leader in this space, because there's a ton of money being poured into multiple companies internationally on humanoids.
Sure.
But our thought is that they are going to solve a problem. Our thought is it is a looking around the corner type technology. If it's used for good, which we fully believe it will be, that it can replace, you hear this phrase all the time, Steve, the dull, dirty, dangerous, repetitive task. That's just, humans are better suited to use our brains and to think and to process until generative AI catches up. If it ever catches up, humanoids are never going to be able to be programmed dynamically and scale till that generative AI kicks in and the foundation models and just the learned language models come to play. So super excited about that humanoids, but we know it's like it's foundational work. It's day one type work with a lot of these humanoids and some of these technology companies. And for us, right, it's not a revenue generator. It's not going to be a substantial portion of our revenue for maybe several years. Jordan said it best, maybe sooner rather than later if they figure the generative AI piece of it out, or they find a use case that just makes sense. The economics of it are close, Steve, cost-wise.
Oh, yeah.
The speed of it is closer than a lot of people would think. The ability, I like to say, it's like you've got a conveyor that you have to program in PLC how to work. A robot's no different. You got to they have some learning, right? But they're still not to that generative level to where they can process and learn a lot new on their own. But with OpenAI and some of what they're doing with these models, who knows? But we're pretty excited. We've been in the room. They're all great people, and but we were excited to be the first to do that and announce that with Agility, and it's just cool. I listened. I'm going to say one more thing, and then Jake's told us we got 10 minutes because we talk too much. I say that every episode sometimes, but we get there. It's like we end up at 45 minutes almost every time, Steve. And that's a large attention span for most people to listen to. I listen to a podcast. If you all are podcast people out there, I know you all are, you listen to different content, but Lex Friedman had Jeff Bezos on.
Oh, sure.
Bezos was talking about the work he's doing at Blue Origin and SpaceX that Elon's doing and why they're doing it. He's like, I'm not doing it for my generation because I won't see it in my generation. But he's doing it and laying down all the work and the cost and the scale to get it done and built and done in the hopes that his children's generation or his grandchildren's generation can take advantage of the economies of scale of going to it. And he talked about AT&T, and you think about the fiber network and Wi-Fi and internet and how it came, and the cost to get that out at the beginning, decades ago was just astronomical. But now all this infrastructure has been built that any smaller companies can come and take advantage of it. So you think of the original cell phone lines, like some off-brand that can jump on the network now, or others that can. And I think robots, humanoids, new technologies are very similar. The cost to play is great. The dollars and cents to put in is great. And it generates from an academic nature, which all the humanoids came out of that. They all go back to DARPA and just like almost this singular group of just brilliant people in the industry. And now it's growing out and spawning out into the others, and humanoids are just one element of it. And we see that. I haven't seen a technology in the material handling space I've been in it 25 plus years that is taking that same course. And I think it's cool to be part of it. So,
yeah, I mean, everybody compares them, or contrasts them to the AMRs, right? The mobile robots, and the mobile robots have taken a long time to, get to where they are today. And I mean, you guys might disagree, but I don't know if they're actually, exactly hitting a home run. Some of the companies are, right? Locus, home run, Mir is doing really well. Otto and ClearPath have done super well. ABB bought a Spanish company, was it ASTI mobile robot? So there's some of them that have done pretty well for themselves, but collectively as a whole, it's taken a long time to get to this point, right? So I think that's the most surprising thing is just, we've been here before, we've done this before as far as introducing a new type of robot. And, self-driving cars are another one that, sort of have fizzled out. But just give it a minute, give it a minute to get
time.
Yeah, it takes time.
And it takes cash. And it's ultimately an idea has to be profitable. You have to be able to commercialize it, and just the scale at which you commercialize. It's not like a drug, right? In a drug, you pour all this money in R&D with the hopes of that it goes out and it's a mass market used drug. And now you've got the patent on it and you can recoup it for, those are super long-term patents. So it takes a lot of cash and brain power, and there has to be a need at the end of the day. Any technology that we get involved with it's like they're all shiny and cool and have a concept, and goods to person right now, Steve, is just super hot. Everybody's trying to has solved, a few have solved goods to person. There's 10 companies I could rattle off today that's got some variation of goods to person that all have dreams. Sure. I want to fast forward 5 to 10 years, and in the twilight of my career, I want to look back and say I think it'll be interesting to look back and say who made it, what made it, and will that trend continue, or does it really focus down to you got some 3 or 4 that are dominant in the market, and that's what they have, and there's less variations. But I don't know. I think that's one of the beautiful things in the time and age that we're living in is just the technologies that are coming. And it's really, we nerd out a little, Steve. We love being there. We to an extent, we see the shiny objects, and I have conversations. I lead that for the group because Jordan's got to do the real work and I got to just do the calling sometimes. But we also know we're very conscientious of it has to work for our customers, because at the end of the day, when we put something in, it's got to work. And so there's a balance, new technology, emerging technology versus it might be the customer's only warehouse. It might be the difference in the customer, the company surviving or not surviving. Sure. It might be the difference in a patient getting a package that they need. So we take that responsibility, super serious, and just, it's a balancing act. But let me pivot or we're going to go too long. So you got any other is there anything more futuristic than the humanoids that you're seeing that is on your radar? And then we'll wrap it up with a fun question.
More futuristic. I mean, obviously the generative AI stuff is definitely futuristic. Space robotics is futuristic. So, we're doing our Robo Business show coming up in October out in Santa Clara, California. We have one of the leading space robotics companies, JITA. They're a Japanese company. One of their founders co-founded a legged robotics company that Shaft, I think it's called, that they sold to Google a number of years ago. But they're building these crazy robot arms that they're looking to have. They're calling it the space workforce. So, that's pretty futuristic.
That's crazy.
So they're going to come talk about how they're building their robot arms and what are some of the challenges of creating them so that they can survive different, the different challenges of space and the environment up there. So that's pretty futuristic. Self-driving cars are definitely futuristic. I don't know if you guys have ever ridden in those, but I've ridden in a bunch of them over the years, certainly in San Francisco. So, if Waymo can get a self-driving car to safely get me around San Francisco for 45 minutes, somebody can build a humanoid that can, move some stuff around a facility and make some money at it. So a lot of things, man, a lot of things. We'll have to get you guys on our podcast and we can brainstorm some other topics too.
Yeah, it'd be cool. Let me let you plug a little bit so the team can put it in the show notes. Is what events do you got coming up? The Robotics Summit, we could probably have spent 30 minutes talking about it. I said what a cool show it was, but
yeah, it was fun.
Just plug maybe your podcast, a few events, and we'll put it in the show notes, because I think anybody that's interested in this topic will want to be hooked up with you and your organization, and just how can they learn more. So just maybe plug 3 or 4, whatever you want to plug it.
Yeah, sure. No, I appreciate that. So the Robotics Summit and Expo, that's our flagship show. Again, we focus on the challenges commercial robotics developers face. So that's a technical show where you can come learn about all sorts of different things related to building commercial robots. That takes place every May. Actually, next year it's April 30th and May 1st in Boston. You can go to roboticsummit.com to learn about that. Our next show is coming up in October 16th and 17th out in Santa Clara. That's called Robo Business. We certainly focus on some of the technical aspects, but we also dive into some of the business aspects of running a robotics company. So we talk about investments, we talk about bootstrapping, we talk about marketing, we talk about selling, we talk about managing fleets of robots that are out in the field. Rodney Brooks is keynoting that show. Sergey Levine is keynoting that show on diffusion AI. We have a state of the industry panel. We're going to close out the show with a gentleman who is from a company called ND Addicts, Tori Smith. He's building a robot pill that you swallow, and it gives a real-time. So this is futuristic. It gives doctors a real-time look in your body. So he's going to swallow the pill on stage, and we're going to stream to the screens behind us what the pill sees inside of his body. So if you're squeamish, just be prepared. He was just on he was actually just on the Adam Savage podcast or show. So check that out. It's pretty crazy. Adam swallowed 2 of them. So the second pill he swallowed and you can drive the pill through your body with like a PlayStation remote control, FYI. So they were trying to find, with the second pill, they were trying to find the first pill that he swallowed, and they found it. So that's kind of crazy. So again, a lot of fun. There's going to be a couple thousand people there from the robotics industry, just talking about new technologies, new techniques for building robots, but also some of the more important business aspects of running a robotics company. So again, that's October 16th and 17th out in Santa Clara. You can go to robobusiness.com. And then we have the Robot Report, which is our flagship media site, therobotreport.com, in a weekly podcast. If you just search the Robot Report in iTunes or any podcast streaming app, you'll find us. So appreciate that, guys.
Yeah, that's awesome. That pill is that's crazy.
Crazy.
I hadn't heard of that.
Crazy. Yeah, I was like, do I want to volunteer myself as tribute? Do I want to get one of my team members to volunteer as tribute? To go up there and swallow. I haven't found anybody yet. So if you guys are interested and want to be the scapegoats, we have some forms we'll send you to make sure, but no, that's going to be pretty wild. But the idea is to get, a better insight into, things. If you're not feeling so well, or that we think that something might be wrong, it's a pretty non-invasive way to explore what's going on inside somebody's body. So it's kind of crazy. Yeah,
I've got a very optimistic look out on when people are building technologies like that. It's like, man, if it improves the human race and the way of life, and I'm all about that. Well,
yeah,
I've really enjoyed this. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Steve.
No, I was just going to say, sorry, real quick. I'm just fascinated by the folks who come up with these ideas and, have the guts and the knowledge and the determination to actually go build it. I think that's probably one of my favorite parts of this is just the people in the business are incredible. They're relentless in what they're trying to do, and they're relentless in the belief of robotics, in that robotics has a lot of good to provide to people and businesses. So it's been a fun 10 years. So here's to many more.
You think a lot of advancements in technologies that's just changed the world, changed humankind, is a lot of that necessity came out of conflict or war or needs. World War II and some just in general, a lot of advancements come out of that, but I think we're seeing it now where it's just humans are wanting to do it without the catalyst for some war that you have to do it to get through it, right? And it's how do we be healthier? How do we do more with the natural world that we have, and just the space and just the discovery and the creativity and just the curiosity of doing it. So I think it's pretty awesome. I get passionate about that because I'm interested in it. I know not everybody is, but I'm interested in it. Yeah. Well, let's switch because Jake's gonna literally shut us down if we don't. I've really enjoyed the podcast. Really enjoyed this topic. Getting to know more about what you do, Steve. Enjoyed. We've talked 2 or 3 times now, and man, I learned something new every time. Just love having you on. We always ask a kind of a checkout question or a fun question. We got 3 or 4 we go from, but I'm gonna just pull one out. So you've had some vacations. You mentioned Jordan mentioned vacations. Ooh. I was going to go climb Mount Fuji. I had to backtrack. My dad's getting older. He's always wanted to go to Scotland. We raise cattle, Angus cattle. The birthplace of Angus cattle is Aberdeen, Scotland. So I'm taking my dad and my son on an airplane for the very first time ever. And we're going to Scotland at the end of August. So I got a pretty cool vacation coming up. And then Jordan, I promised the girls a 10-year-old trip of a lifetime, and Abby's 13 and Anna's 11, and they reminded me they haven't had it yet. So I just finally said the heck with it, and I booked a fall break trip, and I'm taking all my girls. My little boy's going to stay home, but everybody except James is going to go. We're going to do London and Paris in the fall break. So, Steve, your question is, if you won the lottery, or if you just money wasn't an issue or time wasn't an issue, dream vacation, where would you go?
Wow. Probably Hawaii is where I would go. I have never been there. I know some people, some families, some friends who have been there. I live on the East Coast, so it's a little bit of a hike, right? 6 hours to California. And then I think it's probably another, 5 or 6 hours from there. So it's a little tricky to get to for us, but like you guys, we're a beach family. We love, most of our vacations are involving or are organized around where's the closest beach and how much time can we, and how easy is it to get there. So I think that would probably be number one on my list, and probably my girls' list. So I've never been there. So that's for me, number one on the list for sure. I turn 40 next year. I joke with my wife, we usually spend up my birthday down in Cape Cod, which is great, right? So we get the beach in Cape Cod, which is awesome. But Hawaii's probably on a different level, I'm going to guess. So I told her, she can go to Cape Cod next year. I'm going to take the girls to Hawaii for my 40th birthday. So we'll see. We'll see if that happens.
I hope that comes true for you. So Oahu and the Big Island, that's the only 2 I've done. I know there's others, but I mean, it's great. I'm not a beach guy. I'm anti-beach guy, but I really enjoyed Hawaii and we did kind of a second honeymoon there with my wife back. It's been 15 plus years ago, but we really enjoyed it. Super nice people, great atmosphere, and it's worth the volcanoes, national park. It's worth seeing, and the Big Island's got like every ecosystem in the world in it. So definitely would say make that happen.
I'll hit you up. I'll hit you up in a year when I'm on my way.
Do it. I'm gonna hold you to it. Appreciated it. Really enjoyed it. Audience, if you're still listening there, we thanks for spending some time with us today. Present day robotics. I think we all learned more. Jordan, closing comments.
No, it's just appreciate you being on here, Steve. I Googled like 15 things you said during your podcast. I learned a bunch from you, so I appreciate it and enjoyed the show and wish you luck in your Santa Barbara conference here in October.
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate it. Always fun talking to you guys, and best of luck to you guys as well. And if we can ever do anything to help you guys continue to grow and scale, let me know.
Just get us on your podcast. We're glad to talk. Jordan likes to talk, if you can tell. So yeah.
All right, let's do it.